and
Okay.
some people will keep joining afterwards. And then what we're going to do, maybe we're going to give them a little recap and during the Q&A. So Joyce, you can take over.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you all, even those with just your names showing. I'm happy to be here, and I have a presentation for you, but I need to talk with you a little bit about how it's going to go. All right. So one of the first things you need to know is that Lewiston is one of my favorite cities in Maine. I worked there for many years, and I still have buddies like Shane out there, and we do things together. And it's interesting that I have found myself, this is kind of a unique role. Since I left my deanship, I've been teaching full-time. Then I have moved to actually teaching part-time in what we call phased retirement. And I've been spending more time than I have in my time at USM working with young faculty who are trying to write grants to support their careers and to raise money for activities. And that's been kind of fun because I've done it 3 different times now this year, and we got 1 grant. We're waiting to hear about the 3rd, and we didn't get the first, but now that trend, that pattern seems to be growing with my being asked to speak to you all. Basically young folks who are ambitious and excited about making their way in the world. So I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me. I've seen your video a couple of times, and you're very ambitious, and I'm happy about that because you seem also to have the energy to drive it. So I was conflicted about what to do today. I did send you an outline, if you remember. I sent you an outline, and I'm going to be able to do some of that today. So let me get into the screen sharing a little bit, and I'll introduce myself a little bit more for those who don't know about Lewiston and who don't know about USM. So let me see. I think this is where I am. So, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. So this is part of the outline that I sent. Move you all over there. I sent 3 parts here. Getting to know yourself. I think that's really important with career development. Then finding your life's purpose or purposes, and then setting and realizing goals. And I decided to sort of change that a little bit. So here are my goals for today. First, to introduce important elements for career development. Present an efficacy problem-solving framework for development. I used to work for a place called the Efficacy Institute, and to present some ideas for effective networking. So the last one is pretty easy. So if I don't get to it in this hour that we have, I can just send it to you. And anything that I'm presenting now, I can get to you. So I've been re-inspired by Amanda Gorman, who was at the inauguration, to get back into my poetry. So Maya Angelou is a person I really care about. Even though she's gone, she's here with us in spirit. And I like this quote from her, this poem from her. It says, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." That was a lot of fun for me, and I think it's reflective of us as a people. We're always wanting to improve and do better, and if not for ourselves, to do better for other people. So that's sort of my theme for today. do the best you can. And when you know better, do better. All right. So I'm going to move down here a little bit and being careful about my time. So this is just a bio of mine that I sent out to people. So I'm an associate professor of leadership and organizational studies, and I always think about how I can lead better and how other people can lead. Before coming to Maine, I was working at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. I'm in Massachusetts now, y'all, so I'm not there with you in Maine quite, except on the screen. And I held a number of administrative positions, which I must say to you, I prefer administrative roles to teaching roles, but teaching is important and I do it. But I was originally in student affairs and then moved over to academic affairs. I was fortunate that my parents, I'm a person from the South in the US, from Mississippi, and my parents were determined that we should get an education. There were 6 of us, and that was just drummed into our heads. Nobody can take that away from you. You got to get an education. So we did. Most of us did in my family. I see myself more as an experienced administrator. I focus on community university partnerships, which I was able to leverage really well in Lewiston, and especially through the chamber. I'm interested in cultural diversity and organizational change, and I always have a social justice lens on everything. I'm always watching for what's fair and what's right and who's not being treated well in every circumstance. So that's just where I live, y'all. That's where I live. Okay, so I need to tell you this quick story, right? So I was hired in 2009 at Lewiston Auburn College. And I learned later, after I was offered the position, that I was unanimously selected by the search committee, right? And one of the people on the search committee, which I had a strange experience with him because he brought his mother to the interview. That's Chip Morrison. Some of you might know Chip. Anyway, Chip told me later, now that was 12 years ago, right? 12 years ago, I was 63 years old. And he said, what is a 63-year-old woman going to do here for us? But he did vote for me. And so we laughed about it then because he and I became fast friends because he had a hard time keeping up with me. So don't let age deter you from doing anything. I'll be 75 in the fall and I'm considering a whole career, y'all. So, you know, you just keep going, keep living. When God gives you another day, you take advantage of it. So Chip and I are good buddies and I laugh about that incident. Okay, so I'm going to get started. So, getting to know yourself. Now, like I said, if you have a sheet of paper and a pen or just something to write on, I want you to move along with me, all right? I need you to move along with me. Okay, so getting to know yourself in sort of every aspect of who you are. Why is this important? If you can't define who you are, how do you expect other people to get to know you, to understand you? So you have to be the architect of your own life to help yourself, to present yourself to others, but also to get some satisfaction of knowing who you are. It's terrible when other people want to define who you are. I was on video presentation from some Asian students from Maine. It was a variety of Asian students. This was a video about racism as a virus a couple of weeks ago, and it was sponsored by the Holocaust and Human Rights organization that's housed at the University of Maine at Augusta. And there were young people. They were high school students, I think, except for the person who was the facilitator. And I learned some new things that night. But one of the things, a young girl who was a senior, but she was adopted from China by white parents. So she didn't know her people or anything. She really kind of resisted her parents wanting her to learn her language, Mandarin, and resisted interest in going to China to learn about the country. But later she felt much better about it because they were connecting her with her cultural heritage. And the thing that I learned from her was she didn't like being defined by other people. So when, there's a new acronym to define us as people of color, it just varies, right? So some people don't like the BIPOC designation, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And she said she found another phrase that really she identified with more because people of color are going to be in the majority in the next 20 years, right? So she thought about adopting people of the global majority. She thought, I can identify with that more, and that's how I want to identify myself. So that's the young person who's responding to how usually people in power in our system are usually powerful white people who decide what to call us. That's why people have been responding to the census and how you identify yourself on the census. But you need to default that to say, you decide who you are, what you want to be called, and you share that with other people so you can be comfortable. It's not as important that they are comfortable with who you are. Initially, you need to be comfortable and confident in who you are, because other people, sure enough, my grandmother would say, sure enough will define you. All right, so presenting yourself well in the community as well. If you're confident and you can present yourself and define yourself, people will respect you more, no matter where you came from, no matter who you are. So now for a short exercise for you. How do you describe yourself? Where are we? Have I lost my, let's see, my screen sharing. Let's see.
Do you want me to help you stop sharing so that you can see faces?
Not yet. I don't see my own screen sharing yet. I mean, I sort of lost it for a minute, but let me see. I'll get back to it. Well, let me get back to it in a minute. So how do you describe yourself? Let's talk about that for just a few minutes. And if everybody has access to the chat, why don't you start some things in the chat? Think about the different roles you play in life. Think about your family history or your community history. I'll give you a few. Okay. I'm spelling Gardner wrong. How do you spell Gardner? Gardner? Husband, father, entrepreneur, servant to the community, a son or brother, wife, mother. Great. Okay, so what about a connector, mother, caretaker? Very good, y'all. How do you define yourselves if you have a professional role? The same way or differently? Sexual assault advocate, okay? I am up to let me see. I'm an optimistic, hardworking problem solver who likes to collaborate with other people. One of my favorite questions to people when interviewing people for a new position is, please describe yourself to me. And people who cannot do it well have really not thought about this enough. So I need you to actually think about this, practice it, and so you can make an appropriate presentation relevant to the setting that you will be in. So think about your skills, think about your attitude, think about those things. Okay, I have just a little short exercise. Some of the people I read say, you are what you do. So take a look at what happens in your day and you can define yourself. You can define your roles. What do you do in a day? Or some people might want to take a week because they do different things during a week of activities. Well, who is that? Who is that person? What are those roles that that person plays? Take a minute and think about it. And some of you who are brave enough can show us in the chat. What you do is who you are. So if what you're doing in a day doesn't line up with who you think you are, guess what? You need to change that. You need to remedy that. You need to revise that.
Right.
And we have from Steve here, spiritual leader, business person, lifelong learner. Hello. Looks good. We have any others? Let me tell you what I did yesterday and today. Yesterday was Wednesday. Yesterday, I spent the morning reading student papers. Then, so that's my faculty. Then my husband and I drove to Rhode Island to visit our only granddaughter. She's in college in Rhode Island. We hadn't seen her in several months, but we've had our shots. We've had our vaccines, both of them. We took her to lunch. We went to one of the places she likes to go around the campus for lunch. We drove back, and my husband and I fixed dinner together. Then I was back in the computer grading my master's student's theses. So for that day, I was grandma and faculty member And okay, I forgot this. A group of us do a little prayer thing in the evening. So I did that. I think those are things that are pretty accurate reflections of some of my roles. So what you do defines you. I want you to remember that. We got anybody else in the chat? Okay. Well, we're going to move along, but just remember, try to remember that. All right, I'm going to go back to screen sharing for a little bit now. Okay. All right, so this is one that's important to me and should be important to you. What are the principles you live by? I've given you some of mine here. There are more. Being honest, being kind, being fair, having dignity for all people. Doesn't matter what your job is or how much money you make or even what you've done. Everybody's dignity needs to be respected. If you breathe, for me, you're a human being and you are worthy of my respect. I don't know everything that you've done, but I won't stand for people to put you down publicly or otherwise. I believe in collaboration and I honor a higher being. I think I'm a person who has integrity, but you need to know what the principles are that you live by. This helps define you. And it's the lens through which you can do many different roles. So let's see what's going on for your principles. Let's have a few. I'm going to stop sharing for a few minutes and get back. What about principles? Let's have a few. Let's have a few for some people who haven't responded. If you don't want to write in the chat, you can speak them, please. I'm going to wait. I can wait you out now. You know, I'm used to teaching. Justice, kind and honest. Okay, Gail, thank you. Let's have a few more. Compassionate, thank you, Grace, and respectful, grateful. All right. All right. Honest, compassion, and respect. Okay, those are all good examples. I want you to be thinking about your values and the principles you live by. You know, there are always people watching us. Excuse me. Watching your actions, watching how you behave in some situations. And it's important to think about the image that you portray in the community. Do people you know see you as you see yourself? Do you walk your talk with your family, with your community people? My husband's putting the cat back in my office here. Door open. So understanding who you are, understanding the principles you live by will help you in your journey. And it'll be interesting to learn if your community, even members of your family, think that you reflect those values in your interactions with them. But it's important that you know that and think that you're doing that. Okay, I'm going to give you a chance. Our timing is going. I have a question for you. It's a question I have on screen here. What aspect of your life are you currently developing? What are you working on now? we need always to be working on something. I learned a lot about this with my friends who married before I did. My parents were from the South, and you're not married by 20, they think something's wrong with you. All right. I didn't get married till I was 32. So I learned a lot from my friends who were married, and some people thought they never got to work on aspects of their personality till they got married because this person was close enough to tell them the truth about their tempers, the way they behaved with others, and they had to start working on whole new aspects of themselves. But I think your job as a human being is to continue to develop who you are in many different ways. It could be aspects of your personality. It could be new skills. You're learning how to be a parent. You could be learning how to learn a new skill. I'm back to learning Spanish again because I never mastered it. That's what I'm learning Spanish is one of the things I'm working on. There should always be something you're working on. So let's think about that for a few minutes. I'll stop sharing for a minute to see what we're getting. Wow, the time is just moving on, huh? This could also apply to your organization. What aspect of your organization are you currently developing? Is it budget development? Is it evaluation? Is it better supervision of your staff? Is it listening better or more? Creating systems, Gail says, okay. Improving grant writing is something I'm always doing. I have a colleague who is really great at orchestrating group grant writing. So somebody works on the budget, somebody works on the introduction, somebody does the evaluation piece, somebody else looks at the research we're doing, and then we all get together. It takes a lot more time, but it also relieves one person of doing sort of everything. So there are different things you can do. Planning activities, okay? Someone's working to get out of her comfort zone. Yes, so y'all, the thing that separates higher animals, that's us, human beings, from lower animals, whether we're talking about monkeys or cats or dogs, is that we can communicate and we can think in ways that they cannot. So we need to continue to activate our capacity to problem solve, to do new things, to help each other, to be creative in our problem solving, which often means collaboration and brainstorming and going to new events. And something people in the country, the president and other people in the country are trying to get us to do is talk with somebody who has completely different philosophy about life than yours. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes to figure out, how did he get there? How in the world does she think like this? Stimulation, even as we age, I have to be thinking about that a little bit more, right? The scientists and the doctors say the more you stimulate your neurons, the more active you are in thinking, learning how to play the piano, learning a new language, the more you preserve your brain power. So developing is critical for us and helping us advance and adjust and do the things we want to do. Okay, I'm looking at the time.
Joyce, I think we have more responses here. There is
Okay.
also someone said getting rid of fear of failure, and there is also people said selling entrepreneurship, self-development, and spirituality. But also this, I forgot to ask you in the beginning. Do you mind if people ask questions now while you're going through your presentation, or you would prefer first to finish your presentation and then
No,
have a Q&A at the end?
people can ask now because our time is moving. Yes, thank you for asking that. So
Okay.
we'll accept questions along the way, please.
Yes. So actually there is a. Let me start. There's this good question that came to my mind when you were thinking about
Okay.
how can one describe themselves. But then, yes, we all have a description of ourselves. But then you said, okay, now see what you do on your daily basis. Okay, because there is also this other thing where people might think that you are what you do. So then what happens? What can you do when how you describe yourself is not what you do, is not what you're doing currently? The reason
Okay.
why I'm asking that is because as many immigrants, when we come here, we all have, like dreams and we have all these things. We're coming to the land of opportunities. We're going to change the world. We have these big dreams and drives, but then we get here, sometimes we are stuck in entry-level jobs and
Oh, yes.
doing things that we don't even want to do. And because there is this thing inside of you telling you of who you are, and then in the morning doing what you don't want to do, so that conflict causes really depression. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, so I like that question. I think when you find yourself having to do the things you need to do to survive, and it may not even be close to your dream, but you have to, nothing will work unless you do, says Dr. Maya Angelou. I think what you do is you affiliate yourselves with individuals or organizations who represent what you'd like to do or what you'd like to be. For example, I'm terrible with full names of organizations, but there's an organization in Portland. It's a mixed group of immigrant women and already women who are citizens who support each other's efforts. They have regular meetings, they talk to each other, they create opportunities for each other because they have some common interests. So don't stay isolated. Affiliate yourself with groups or individuals. And you all talked about mentoring in your video. I think that's critical. You identify people who are doing what you want to do, who are behaving like you would like to behave, that you'd like to learn from, and keep them as, hi, I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you.
I'm going to the dentist.
Okay,
I'll see you later.
I'll see you later. Okay. So it's important to find a mentor. We can help you find mentors. I want to tell you a quick story. It's been about 5 years ago, right here in Maine, our university had a string of presidents. One would stay a year, another, and was booted out. Another one would stay 6 months and was booted out. Now, my background is in leadership. I teach about leadership. And one of the things that happens with very effective leaders is that they always have mentors. They always have somebody who knows more than they do, or somebody who's done what they've done. Now, those 4 presidents who were booted out felt that they were smarter than everybody. So they never had a mentor. They never took advice from other people. Let me tell you, I tried. We set them up sometimes, to get advice from other people. They didn't really want to get to know the community or those people in the community. And they all failed with us because they didn't want to receive feedback. They thought they were too smart since they had their PhDs. But let me tell you, there's always somebody smarter than you. And if you get smart, you will learn from that person or those persons. I always have at least 2 mentors. Hello.
Hey,
When you're beginning and you're aspiring to be something else, find a person in that circle that you want to be like who can help you so you can move forward. And that person will see who you are, aspirations, the kind of person you are, and help you out.
great,
Helpful?
great. Very, very helpful. So don't just stay, stuck and feeling sorry for yourself. Instead, keep moving. Find people who can be your mentors and just keep learning.
And stay connected.
Yeah, great.
Other questions?
Hey, I have a question.
Okay, Grace, let's go.
Hi. First of all, I cannot believe you're about to be 75. I still stop with that.
Right.
That's impressive. But I listened to you, and it's really admiring how, even though you say you're 75, you keep like wanting to start new things. And I just wanted to ask you, what are some storms you had to face, and how did you push through it? Do you have any advice for a 21 years old Black woman that wants to also, step out there and, do something different, like being leader or, just, yeah, basically just.
Okay, so some of the storms that I've gone through.
Especially as a Black woman in this country.
Okay. So let's see. I have had I had one job and in Massachusetts. And I'll give you 2 quick examples. I had one job in Massachusetts, and the president at that college, along with the search committee, had chosen me as the next dean, right? And at that time, I was doing dean of students work. I wasn't academic dean, but I had my degree. So I actually had white people from the board of trustees come to my office and ask me if I was, can you imagine this? Coming to my office and asking me if I was really the dean.
Wow.
Okay, so I had to think about it for a few minutes. These are trustees, and so these are people that your president normally reports to. But they're asking ignorant questions, and they're behaving in unprofessional ways. So I have a way of being sarcastic without blasting people totally out of the water. So I did this. I said, do you know my name? You must know my name. Yes. Do you understand that I was actually hired? He looked really strangely and he said, yes. And are you the person who made an appointment to come to my office? Well, then I must be the dean. Sometimes you have to step back and work your way through it. Another quick example on that campus, I had disciplined a student for harassing, a male student for harassing a female student. And he decided I had put him on probation for the rest of the term. If he behaved, I would take those records out of his file, and he would not have to go to grad school with them in there. But he would accost her in the cafeteria. He would knock on her door at night, and she didn't want to see him anymore. So it was my job to discipline him. So he brought his whole family, his mother, his father, and his brother. And this was a family of a different nationality than me. They were international people. And so they all sat down with their son, and he started to yell and scream at me. I don't take that from anybody. See, you have to know what your values are. You don't scream at me. I don't care who you are. So I said, so-and-so, you're going to have to leave my office. So I put him out. He was standing right at the door. I could hear him breathing at the door. So a few minutes later, after I put him out, we got back to talking, and his mother did the same thing. I said, okay, this is where he gets it from. This is an older woman. I was much younger then. And she starts to scream, call me a liar and all that. So I said, okay. I looked at her and I said, you know what? I will not put you out, but I will turn my back to you. And if your husband and your son want to continue to speak to me, I will do that. Otherwise, you can all leave. So that's a little easier when you have your own office, but still it's an assault on your person. It's an assault on your person. And you don't have to take it. That's another thing you need to understand. You don't have to take rough treatment from anybody. You really don't. Especially on the job. It's unprofessional. And now everybody has cameras. You can even film the damn thing, you know, but it lets people know where you stand and you won't take it. And sometimes you might lose in some situations, but you can live with yourself. You can live with yourself. And we can do some role playing around some of these things if you'd like, but it's to keep your dignity for you and your family. You can't allow people to run over you. Sometimes you might need a job, but you know, keep your connections with people and share what happens to you. Sometimes you're not strong enough. You have to build skills to be strong in many situations. These don't come automatically with you. You know, when you are dealing with people who are calling you out of your name. I used to be upset by that. And now I throw the question back to them. Well, what is an N? Do you know what that is? I don't know what that is. Will you explain that to me? I don't recognize that name. But it takes some practice and some work with others to build up those antibodies to put people off. Bullies can be easily dissuaded once they know you're not going to take it from them, right? I hope that was a little helpful.
Oh, that was so helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Whoa, we're running out of time, y'all. So, other questions? I have one thing I really want to show you before I go. So, if there's another quick question, I guess I'll have to come back, huh, y'all? So, nothing else?
So, to me, maybe, and again, we were late to start, so I think you have another 10 to 15 minutes,
Okay.
if you could. But another thing that many young people really do struggle with, and now it's everywhere. It's how to know your purpose. Because many people really are in depression because like, hey, how do I know my purpose? And how do I even know my gifts? It's because sometimes to really be able to know in which career path you want to take, it's better first you know your purpose and your gift and talents. So what would be your advice for people who are struggling, with knowing their purposes?
Okay, so I think there are a couple of things a person can do. One may happen in school where you take an inventory to see what you're more interested in. More things mathematical or mechanical, or more things around social service or caring for people. That's one of the ways it can happen. It can happen in school, whether you do an inventory. Another way, maybe a more fun way, is to sit down with someone. Could be a family member, or it could be someone you know at the chamber, Shana or somebody, and sit down and talk about what you think you like to do, and then we can figure out who you can shadow. If you think you might want to be a doctor, or you think you might want to be a midwife, or you think you might want to be a writer, or if you don't even know allow yourself to be assigned to somebody who's doing something that, you know, piques your interest. And experiment until you figure it out. And that gets back to something we won't cover fully today, and that is networking.
Right.
When I learned more about your organization, I thought about the organization that we just formed more formally at the university. It's called the Faculty and Staff of Color Association. Now, some institutions did that 20 years ago. USM is behind in a lot of things. And that's one of them. I came from institutions where there were faculty groups of Latino people, faculty groups of Black people, faculty groups of LGBTQ people, just a whole women's organization, and they work together to support each other because they know that there are pressures and practices and policies in the system that work against them. So, you know, almost all our institutions in the U.S. work against marginalized people. If you're a person of color, if you're poor, you're in big trouble in the U.S. You know, your immigration status doesn't matter in many situations because some of these institutions like anybody who's different. And that's why in many situations now we're finding a lot of poor white people who figure out they're behind the 8 ball too. You know, so I thought we started as an organization that was just going to support each other's development on campus, faculty and staff. For example, we have a big problem at USM. We don't even have 1% of people of color in our administrative staff, not even 1%. We've done a lot better recently with faculty. We had about, I think, 8 or 9 new faculty of color hires this year. That's because they've been working on it. Institution has been working on it. They haven't been working so hard on staff, but we're beginning that work. Well, what happened was we moved after a year, because I just joined this past year. They were already doing some things when I was away. We moved from an organization that was just being supportive of each other and trying to help each other negotiate the system to an organization with a more aggressive purpose in helping the institution do its job around us. Instead of just trying to be supportive within it, we moved to being a force to help the institution do its job. And in doing so, we've agreed to affiliate with other like organizations, not just around campus, but in the larger community. So, for example, what I'm saying is if you all were interested in affiliating with us, you have different skills than we do. We have different skills, of course, some in common. You know, broaden your network. And we can define what our relationship is. You know, that's why I'm sure that's one of the reasons you're affiliated with the chamber. The chamber has a lot to share with you in the city and the town where some of you work, getting to know people who are members of the chamber. And, you know, networking in some jobs you just cannot do without it. I couldn't do without it. And my job as dean. Not a bit. You know, so I had to work those chamber breakfasts, collaborate with people all over, and on a consistent basis. You have to be available, not only to understand and meet people, but create opportunity for other people with you. So building those networks, you know, is real important. It's really important. Because you never know who can do for you. I mean, that's
Right.
why my daughter said, say yes to everybody who wants to be linked with you. Boom, I say yes. And I can find people in different professions in different areas, you know, who are out in public, which means they're looking for something and they'll do something for you, basically.
Right. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's see. I think some of the things I've already said, but I want to get to a model that I learned about when I worked for this organization, and it may be useful to you because you begin to find systems or formulas that work for your own development, and you continue to use them until, you get what you need. So I'm going to quickly just go over some of those latter things and then move to that model. So we move past what aspect of your life are you currently developing, and you can stick organization in there as well. So I think most people know this. It's just kind of good to hear it sometimes. Understanding how we learn and continuously improve. There are basically three ways people learn. You go to school, you learn from your own life experiences, if you get smart, that is. I mean, some people do the same dumb thing over and over again, but us learn from our mistakes, learn from our general experience. And here's the third one that hits on mentors. You learn vicariously, you learn through other people. You watch how other people do things. And you imagine, is that something I could do? Or I wonder how that person did that. Is that something that I'd be interested in doing?
Right.
People who've already gone through the presidency, or who already been midwives, or who already been writers. Even if people have failed at writing, they can tell you about their experience so you can avoid it. A mentor can tell you how she got to where she is. I'm this way because this happened. I can tell you hundreds of stories about people who helped. I have a quick story about working at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I got there, and the Office of Minority Affairs was housed next to the waste dump. They used to collect liquid waste outside the office where the Office of Minority Affairs was. It was outside, but our office was so deep in MIT that it was right by that dump. You got to get out of there. This cat does crazy things in my library here. So I said, this is crazy. What kind of statement does that make? You want the Office of Minority Affairs to be back in here? So I was new. This was like my first week. So I started introducing myself to people everywhere. People say when you go to institutions, you got to meet so-and-so, you got to meet so-and-so. This person may help. And so I took it literally. So I visited every vice president, the president, every dean, everybody has some responsibility there. And I introduced myself, told them what I was doing. Glad you all support what we're doing. What can you do to help me? What can you do to help me? What does it look like for MIT to have its Office of Minority Affairs outside a liquid waste dump? Hello? That Office of Minority Affairs is on the main corridor, on the main street in Massachusetts at MIT because people helped me get it there. One of the vice presidents gave me $10,000 in my budget. Now they gave more scholarships for students. Ask, you might receive, but you've got to do some things that you think are right, and you can move forward. Okay, so learning from others. Okay, so always be open to learning, even from people you don't like. And there are lots of people who get on my nerves, but some of them are in areas where I need to grow and learn some things. And they're the only ones there, so I suck it up and say, okay, Susie, can you help me with this? I work through it. Number 4, you're not fully human if you're not reflecting on what you do and how you do it. You got to get your own feedback and feedback from other people, but you got to think through some things. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't make time for. And we make more mistakes when we don't think things through. You might want to have your reflection exercise with your partner or your friend or your sorors or the other people you work with, or somebody in your family, your priest or your minister or somebody who you respect. but you got to start thinking through what you need to on your journey for higher development. It's just a must, guys, folks. It's just a must.
Yeah. Actually, I do have a question and a comment on that point, Joyce.
Okay.
I think, to me, I feel like it was easier to have time to reflect back then. Even me growing up when I was in high school, we didn't have these smartphones with us, so we only had those the flip phones. So I remember, it was easy really to be quiet and reflect, because I think that the kind of reflection I'm thinking about really needs somebody to be in the quiet and really think. But now we are connected 24/7. There is a social media, and you wake up and there is WhatsApp, there is Facebook, there is Instagram, there is all these kind of things. And then you do that. After that, you go to school, and then at night you're back in social media. So I want you to talk a little bit about on the power of really having time to reflect, to think about yourself, and what would be your advice to a busy generation we are?
Easier said than done, but here's the thing. You just schedule it. Schedule it. I was terrible with scheduling vacations. Oh, because I got to be at work. Such and such can happen without me. Yes, it can. Institutions will continue to function when you're not there, Joyce. Definitely.
Right.
Schedule it. So we just had this business conference at USM, and what's the guy's name? His name is Dan Harris. He's some CBS reporter who found himself having a panic attack in public on his broadcast, and somebody saved him, from totally spazzing out. He was with us. That happened 5 or 6 years ago. He was with us marketing a meditation app and how he makes time to slow his day down, because he's an A personality who runs. But he got the awful end of it on public. He said, I didn't completely fall out, but I spazzed because I never took time to reflect. Schedule it. Help somebody help you schedule it. It could be 10 minutes in the morning. You can do it at lunch. Turn the phone on Do Not Disturb. Somebody can help you practice, but it will come back to bite you. All this multitasking that people are so excited about is really not psychologically a good thing to be doing. Research has shown that multitasking is just making yourself crazy. Some of us are better at it than others, but it's not a healthy thing. It's stress producing. So schedule it. So if you need to get up 10 minutes earlier, or you need to only go to lunch, for 30 minutes and use the other 10 minutes or 15 minutes to just, you do it in different ways. You can just take a walk and reflect on what happened in the morning or on something that's pressing. And you get to befriend yourself again.
Right.
Like your company again. And you know what? It would be a great role model for other people. Okay, my boss, Gail, he took 10 minutes and he said to people, I've got to leave this meeting on time because I have my reflection time scheduled. And that's not something I'm giving up. It's like picking your kid up after school, or picking your spouse up, or making time for fun. You need to schedule it, like you schedule your vacation. Schedule your vacation now that we can get out. You're going, somebody on the call was off for a week or two. Some people go on annual retreats and they do it better then, but you need to practice it more than once a year. How about once a week? Start with once a week. On Fridays, which is my time to unravel and finish up all the things that I haven't done for the first part of the week, I can relax a lot more. I sleep a little longer that morning. I take my time. So my advice is schedule it in, and maybe work with 2 or 3 other people who are trying to do it too. You don't have to be with them physically, but you can say at 8 o'clock, Sue and George and I agreed to take 10 minutes of reflection time, or at the end of the day. Or at the end of the day, you can sit down with a couple of people if you want to do it then, or just sit down with yourself before the end of the day and say, and you need to do that to figure out what's going on the next day anyway, y'all. What happened today that I need to think about what happened so I can reorder my priorities for tomorrow. I may need to say, damn, I haven't seen my mom in 5 weeks and I got some time off. Reschedule that because I'm going to go see my mother. I'm going to talk to my mother at this time, or my child, or you need some quiet time. You need some time to rejuvenate. We didn't even get to talk about balance. Reflection time is the time you can help create that balance, right?
Quick question, Joyce.
Practice,
here.
practice though. Okay, Steve, hey.
Yeah, thank you so much. If I piggyback on what Gail was just asking about, I feel like after the few years I've been living here in this country, I have the feeling like planning is one of the most difficult things for most people because of the nature of the activities that they have, the kind of work that they do, the kind of schedules that they have every week, which is mostly fluctuating all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting that time to plan ahead of time, like to plan the week ahead, to plan the date, the things that you'll be doing tomorrow, or the things that you want to do like next month. I think for many people, many immigrants, it's hard to do that. What would be your advice for like just planning, just taking time to plan? How would you do that? Because you have, in my experience and in the experience of many people, you have people doing 2 jobs, okay, 3 jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and what they have to, or maybe at the same time having classes at the university or college. And then what they have most of the time is it's a week that doesn't stop, like, you know, schedules that don't stop, and they don't even know if they plan something that might happen tomorrow. They're not sure if it's gonna happen the way they planned it. So while they plan Tuesday might be just different from what they planned. So they kind of just get rid of planning at the end of the day. They're like, okay, I think I'm done. I'm not gonna plan because what I planned is not what happened. So how would you advise people to plan in these kind of situations?
I think that when people are running all the time, it gets to be a habit and it feeds itself. So I think you and 2 other people need to commit to a time where you will check in with each other about your schedules and how things are going. We could organize a group right here that checks in, you know, maybe we can start weekly and just for a few minutes and have people just stop. You know, this is just a 10-minute call. Steve, this is a 10-minute call on Sunday afternoon or whatever you figure. Let's check in. You know, you may even want to do it. A lot of people do Facebook and all that stuff. My kids force me to use Facebook because that's what they'll message. I'm on Twitter, but I don't love Facebook. But whatever the medium, say, okay, this Sunday, let's take a look at what we're doing. Let's take 10 minutes, honor each other's time. If you're going to do 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. Each of you has a couple of minutes to just share what you're doing and how you're doing it. And let me tell you, that collaboration and checking in with each other may teach you how to reduce that schedule. So you can be doing something else, but you're keeping it all to yourself and you're running like on a treadmill forever. You know, you see the little rat going around in the cage all the time, but we're human. And that running all the time is against our nature. And something will break down. Your heart, your feet, your head, your mental health. Trust me, something will break down if you don't stop. Collaborate with some people to help you stop, and then you can ultimately, okay, we've done it 10 minutes for 2 weeks now. How is that working with us? Do we need a little more time, a little less time? Let's think about it. What can I do to help you, Steve? Steve, what can you do to help me, Joyce? You know, let's take a look at it. You don't have to stay on the treadmill. You need to maybe change. One person may say, well, Steve, I know about something that is going to do you a lot better than what you're doing. But if you're doing the same thing all the time and you have tunnel vision, you're not going to be able to see other things. So you got to stop, reflect about it, talk to somebody about it in that period, and see what gives. You're helping each other out. You might find some new and different things to do, but if you continue on your own doing the same thing and you got a buddy in the next cubicle who's doing the same thing, you don't know what the hell's going on with him. You know, he may be going crazy, going crazier than you, but you got to stop it. And you've got to have some other people help you be accountable for stopping and start to do some planning. I'm saving $50 of another book that'll tell you the same kind of stuff. You need to just collaborate with somebody, get some assistance with that. Or, you know, you've got to, I talk to a therapist like every 3 weeks. Hello? It's just a 15-minute meeting. I talk to her about whatever I want to talk to her about. It helps me set my week or a couple of weeks sometimes on issues that I'm dealing with. That's why we have psychologists. That's why they get certifications. So they can help people like me and whoever else wants to do it. But you have to stop. And that person can help you reflect on, why am I on the treadmill here? Well, let's look at your values versus your goals. Maybe something's out of alignment. And the closer you can get to being aligned with who you really want to be, the closer you can get to stopping that constant going around that's not moving you forward. Do you understand what I'm saying? You need to.
It's a very good answer. Yeah, I like that.
Some intervention. And, you know, I can come back and I can be a resource depending when we do it, but, you know, this works. I've been around long enough. I have to stop myself sometimes and say, wait a minute, what is going on here? Stop.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's I think that's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So will I be
And,
hearing from you? See?
Was that?
Will I be hearing from you?
Probably.
Okay. I'd like that.
Yes. And I think I do have last question here in the chat, and it's a great question, and I wanted you to just give
Okay,
us
let
your,
me
yes, just give us your
stop the
perspective.
share and get in the chat.
Yeah, so it's from Yvette, and many of us really can relate to this. It speaks to us. So some people tend to judge immigrants' intellectual ability based on their English accent. Sometimes even before they speak or let them express their ideas. So which impacts, of course, the self-confidence and esteem of some immigrants. So what advice could you give to them? To them means immigrants, when it comes to build their confidence instead of putting themselves down based on people's perception?
That is a good question. Okay. Actually, the model I'm not going to be able to show you tonight is about building confidence.
We can have you
Um,
back.
If these are people on your job, or if they're people, in kind of a public arena, you won't have the opportunity necessarily to push back on them at the moment. But it's important to be able to check in with people, who actually know you and who understand who you are and who may be able to give you some tips about responding. But building your confidence depends on being with people who know who you are, being with people who understand your aspirations, who can help you even understand the ignorance of the other people. So I don't know any of you very well. I know Shana. But I think also what's wrong with a lot of people in America is that they forget that anybody who wasn't brought here as a slave or who is already here is an immigrant. They don't know their history. They don't know their immigrant history. And so you need to learn American history to know just as what I just said. The English came over here to beat up and take the land away from native peoples. They went to Africa to get me and my ancestors and everybody else. French, Portuguese, German, Irish, all the rest of them are immigrants. So in many ways, they aren't different from you. They aren't different from you. You're understanding that history and standing on your knowledge of that and affiliating with people who know your value. Immigrants built this country. When people go crazy about Asian people, where are you from? Or they talk about your accident, you can learn to respond like I learned to respond when people called me a nigger. When people call you out of your name or when they're disrespectful, you can learn ways to stand up for yourself. It takes some practice, but knowing the history and being with people who know who you are, the valuable person that you are, will help you continue to build your confidence. And also as you grow in your efforts to build your skills in the area where you want to grow, that will help. And I'm back to harping on something we already talked about, having a mentor who cares about you and who understands you and who works with you. So you have to stand with people. We don't do these things alone. That's why your mom and your dad worry about you when you go out into the world, because they're not there to help you. So you build your family, you build your support. And in this circle of people here, that just those that are here tonight, there are people who can help, people who've had an experience and are managing very well. So sometimes just having some history, connecting with people who care about you and who know your value, and then you can practice how to respond to so-and-so.
Shanna, you wanted to add something on that?
I do, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to. I mean, I'm going to start by saying this is only half an answer for Yvette, because I don't know how you deal with one person individually in a coffee shop or in a place where you don't have the framework and a say, because people are ignorant. And you're right, they do hear accents and make assumptions that are stupid, quite frankly. I have this much French ability. I know how to say you're a really bad student in French. And that's what I got after 4 years of honors. And I know every time I hear somebody speak in English with an accent, I'm amazed that they have already learned at least 2 languages, right?
Oh,
But that's what you learn when you delve out of what you were raised in to try something else. And while more and more people are doing that, certainly it's not enough. What I did want to share that helps you in at least half maybe of the circumstances you might be in is if you're in a place where you can speak to a colleague or have the ability to do this. I was in a group of, I was working with 40 people who were canvassing a neighborhood for a specific project. And for some of the folks that were in the group, they were native born white folks who had never really spent any time with someone who spoke a different language as their native language or came from a different culture. And then the other half of the group were super diverse. They were from all over Africa, primarily Africa. I think there was maybe 20 languages reflected in that room that they could speak. And there was some assumptions that were made on that first day. And one of the things that I was able to do to help break down some of those assumptions was I set up almost like a matchmaking environment where we talked about how we'd go in teams of 2 to do this outreach, and that each team would have a primary English speaker and then at least one person who could speak an additional language. And we went around the room and named all of the languages that we were marginally proficient in. And pretty quickly it became apparent that all of the white folks in the room were not able to contribute much. And everyone else in the room could contribute 3 or 4 or 5 languages. And pretty soon, because there was bonuses and incentives to being able to like complete the most surveys and have the most conversations, people realized the more languages their partner could speak, the more able they were going to be to succeed at the end of the day. And we changed the actual construct that people make those assumptions in. And I offer that knowing that it is not helpful in so many spaces, but there are spaces where mentioning that or trying something like that so that folks can see the strength and advantage of being multilingual could benefit and flip that stigma on its head. I know that it's not a silver bullet and there's so many spaces that it won't work in, but it's a good way to introduce what some can see or have, confidence issues around as an asset and as a strength. And there are folks out there who do see it that way, but I would invite you to see it that way in yourself and to look for the opportunities, limited as they might be in the beginning, to shift others' perceptions as well. Because I think it's not just how one sounds at first conversation, but what advantages that brings. And in the world of career, in a global market, you are opening up markets. You are opening up. I mean, whether it's a downtown business in Lewiston or Auburn who's looking for somebody who is able to speak to some of the folks who come in that they have to like use a language line normally or point to a sign on the wall, you're creating access for their customer base that they wouldn't have before. And depending on what kind of career you're in, that global market and that understanding of global markets and other cultures is a huge selling point in marketing and in social media and economics and in finance. And so do dig deep and see that as a strength in yourself and look for every opportunity to shift others' perceptions, as courageous as that makes you have to be. But I just offer that as one experience that helped shift some perceptions once.
Great answer.
Yeah, that's very helpful because, we're moving toward a much more global economy too. And people who speak more than one language have a serious advantage. So when you think about building your organizations and marketing yourself to organizations you want to work in, like Sheena said, it's like, hello, I speak 3 languages and I could help you with ABC, and you need to hire me because I have these advantages, so it's a whole nother area of marketing yourself in an interview. I'm really good at that.
May I add something?
Please.
Yes, so I would like to say also that sometimes we have this idea that just because we have that accent, or maybe it happened one time that someone kind of pushed back when we were like presenting or introducing ourselves, and then because of that, the accent, we feel like we were not received the way we should have been received. But I feel like sometimes also as immigrants, we at that point we start kind of staying in our corner and not trying to keep going and moving forward. So I would like also to encourage ourselves not to buy into the victimhood mentality at all. Just understand that we really are, as you are mentioning it, we are a global force. We are offering something that maybe some people don't have, and it's something, it's a how to say that, it's a plus, it's an addition, it's a strength. It's not a weakness just because you have an accent. And most of the time, people who will judge you based on your accent, most of the time you are more educated than them. Most of the time, I'm not
Right.
saying all of the time, but most of the time. So let's just, sometimes I feel like sometimes the news that we get, it's like we're not well received, and we kind of just stayed there. Oh, we are being judged, and we're trying to play the victimhood thing. But let's not play that. We are here because we are rising. So if we are rising, we're not gonna be victims anymore. Just wanted to add that.
Yes, I agree.
Good job. No, it's, this reminds me that, well, we haven't talked about, and maybe I'm not really the right person to talk to you about this, but as you're trying to build an organization and to do all the things, you have at least 10 different things you guys want to do, from, being a resource to young people, getting mentors, coaching. You got a lot. Being a resource to the community at large. I'm looking for my notes, from that video. Building the strength of the organization itself, building your infrastructure and building programs where people want to come to you to get things done. Not just immigrants. Your immigrants is your base you're supporting, but you need to build an organization that offers programs that anybody wants. I mean, that's what America is about. Okay, you build your infrastructure, you write those grants, you get that recognition, and you start doing things for anybody who needs that service. And you can do it in different languages. You talking anything from marketing to social services. I mean, it's like building strength in organizations. I want to just refer you to somebody who is doing this in a big way, and a person, it's not clear to me whether your organization could access this, but accessing the man might give you opportunity to find out where you could access it. I don't know whether you saw, I didn't see it, but our president put it on a link for us, the interview on 60 Minutes with Darren Walker. Did any of you all see that? Darren Walker is the head of the Ford Foundation. Darren Walker is a lawyer, a very prominent gay man who came out of some little town in Louisiana that nobody ever heard of to become the head of the Ford Foundation, one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. He makes about $1 million on his own, not to mention what he gives away. He's a philanthropist, but he started, I guess, a couple of years ago. He's been head of the Ford Foundation since 2013, but he started changing the way philanthropy happens and started to give nonprofits money for infrastructure, not just programs. Traditionally in this country, all the foundations give money for programs, but you don't have enough money to pay your staff or buy that computer,
Or the capital you need for that infrastructure. I know we could talk about it all night. Joyce, we are coming close to our time.
Okay, so
I want to give you a chance to type whatever email address you might prefer in the chat box. We will also try to get out any connection points that you've shared with Gail previously with folks, and this video will be up too. But as we get ready to close out and make the most of everyone's time, and I know that folks have been asking as they go, and Gail's been doing an
That's
amazing
good. That's great.
emceeing. Was there any kind of last minute questions that folks wanted to ask Joyce before we get ready to wind down our night together?
She's a good moderator. She's keeping us on track, guys.
Yeah, right. I don't think so.
It's such a sign that Joyce has been comprehensive tonight. Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome. I would very much, what I'll do, I would like to, I'll send this model, which in some ways is self-explanatory, but not fully. I'll send it to Gail, Shayna, people,
Yes.
We'll help get it out. And I know you didn't get a chance to talk about SMART goals and some of the goal setting kind of frameworks tonight. That's something we can send out. And you touched on both the importance of mentoring and networking tonight. And we did have a speaker cover that 2 weeks ago, but it was the foundational piece of this group, and is something that Gail and
you're frozen a little bit.
and Eunice and so many others have made a commitment to, and that we're actively working on connecting with mentors. And so we'll follow up with you to see if you want to be included in the mentoring list or those 10-minute chats that you offered, because I think
Okay.
connecting
We'll
with
be honored,
folks,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and then, well, since you've had people talk about some of those things, I hope you have some resources, and I'm not necessarily offering myself, but your organizational development. You got a bunch of ambitious goals, and are you structured in a way to make those happen? Have you set some priorities for those? Have you done any grant writing for those? Are you affiliated with any people who can take you under their wing to help you with that? So those are, sounds like you're getting people from many different corners, and
Yeah.
having a successful.
Yeah, I think those are the things that we're going to reach out to you and then talk more about those opportunities. But it was really a pleasure to have you today, and I think we're going to have you back in the near future.
Okay.
And thank you so
After
much.
the term is over, we got 3 weeks in the term. So after,
Yeah, right.
after graduation, May 8th is graduation. Then we
Right.
can talk about some
Yeah,
more time.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you
so
for having me. It's been a pleasure to acquaint myself with you all through my old friend, the Chamber, and Shayna. So I'll look forward to being with you again. I'll look forward
Yes.
again.
Yes. So thank you guys so much for being so kind today. And I think, please, if you could unmute yourself and just say thank you to Joe. You just, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of thank yous.
I see
Yeah,
them.
a lot of thank yous.
Wonderful.
Yes. So thank you so much, Joyce. That again. Thank you also, guys.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you,
You're
Gail.
welcome. It's
Yes.
good to be here with you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Joyce.
Yes. Okay. Bye, bye, guys.
Okay.
See you the following. No, not this coming Tuesday, but the following one. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.